for stopping by Across the Fence. I'm Keith Silva. Saffron is heralded as the world's most expensive spice. That's because it takes a lot of the so-called red thread, 4,000 flowers equal an ounce, and for all of you bakers out there, that's about 6 teaspoons. The taste of saffron has been described as sweet, earthy, and floral. A couple of years ago, Ben Willis helped harvest saffron in an unlikely yet familiar place.
Okay, now, this isn't rocket science, but everybody has their own way of doing this, by the way. This is just my way. These we're throwing out, sorry. I'm going to put the stigma in there. So there's the stigma right there.
Since 2015, UVM entomology professor Margaret Skinner has been leading research into saffron cultivation in North America. I joined Margaret on her test plot at the UVM Horticulture Research and Education Center, where she showed me how to harvest the lucrative but labor-intensive crop. Just pinch it right here?
Yep.
All right. There we go. 3 pieces of saffron.
Yeah. Because of the high cost of saffron, it's the most adulterated spice in the world. One of the reasons that we think developing a North American saffron industry is a good idea is because when you buy saffron in the market here, if you don't know who grew it, maybe it's saffron, maybe it's part saffron, maybe it's not saffron at all. And so that's why it's really good to have a local source where you know how it was grown and you know who picked it, you know that it's been produced by people who are ethical about how they treat their staff, etc.
Margaret's research began with a graduate student from Iran who asked her why saffron was not being grown in Vermont. Margaret started to look into why.
My initial thought was, oh, it'll never survive here. That's a silly idea.
But once Margaret began growing saffron, the small flower yielded big surprises.
I think the real eureka moment for us was, oh my goodness, it will survive outside in a cold Vermont winter. Even in the Northeast Kingdom, they can grow it. And when we started back in 2015, our assumption was, based on the literature, that it wouldn't survive in our cold weather. So that's how it all started.
The more Margaret learned about saffron, the more clear it became that this could be a perfect crop to grow in Vermont.
We're never going to have large acreages of saffron in our region, chances are. Maybe in some places out west, but it's always going to be best suited for small, diversified farmers. And we know that over 90% of the farmers in Vermont and in the US are small, diversified farmers. So it's perfect. So a grower said to me one time, oh, Margaret, I love saffron. You know, if I pick a bunch of spinach and I take it to the farmer's market, I spend all this time growing it and picking it and washing it. I take it to the farmer's market, maybe it sells and maybe it doesn't. I take saffron there, maybe it sells and maybe it doesn't. If it doesn't sell, I bring it back and put it back in my drawer. The spinach onto the compost heap, and it's pretty much a total loss.
Not long after beginning her research, word began to spread about Margaret's work.
Saffron has a certain mystique to it. And so when we started getting a little bit of press, people said, saffron? That super expensive spice? Grow it in Vermont? Yeah. Oh, come on. And so I think it really triggered some interest just because of that. It seems so illogical when you think that most of the saffron is coming from warmer climates in Spain or Iran. They thought it was really wild.
As Margaret's work began to gain national attention, an aspiring farmer named Jetta came across an article about saffron research at UVM.
Jetta and her partner Zaka were inspired. And today, I'm witnessing the result of that inspiration with a visit to their farm. Calabash Gardens.
And we moved here in March of 2017. And then that summer, we bought our first saffron corms. We had 2 successful seasons with the test plot, and we decided in the 3rd year of the test plot to go production. That was in 2020.
It was a tough year to start a business, but Jetta and Zaka persevered, though there have been many challenges along the way. But none of this has discouraged Jetta and Zaka from pursuing their dream. With the help of Margaret's research, they are full of optimism for the future.
From every step of the way, her contribution has been invaluable to us.
Yeah, absolutely. She's been a wealth of knowledge, Arash as well. We have bounced ideas off of them, asked them so many questions. They've been a huge support to us. And I hope that, in return, our farm has also been sort of an interesting way for them to sort of garner some knowledge as well.
At Calabash Gardens, I'm Ben Willis with Across the Fence.
Joining me in the studio to talk further about saffron and upcoming workshop at the University of Vermont is the leader of the North American Center for Saffron Research and Development at UVM, Margaret Skinner. It's always a pleasure to have you here and be able to talk to you, Margaret. You're an entomologist by training, and we just heard you talk about how saffron came to UVM, but what was why did you decide, what finally ticked you over and went entomologist to saffron?
I'm a member of a research team at the Entomology Research Lab, and our primary principle is to meet the needs of growers. And oftentimes, or most of the time, it is insect related or pest related, and helping them develop integrated pest management options. And so a lot of times we work with greenhouse growers or growers of high tunnel vegetables, and generally small diversified growers. Right. And they have a hard time making a living. And so sometimes we have to work outside of that entomology realm, and so that sort of led us to saffron.
Well, it takes a woman with vision to see that, and you certainly are that. I've attended past workshops that you've held, and there's a wide range of experience in the room. Talk about the skill level someone needs to grow saffron. Do you have to be good at growing things to grow saffron?
Yes and no. One of the nice things about saffron is you don't need a lot of equipment. If you're just getting started for the first time, you might need a rototiller to prepare the soil, but you don't need a big cultivator, a big tractor even. You need a dehydrator or an oven to dry the saffron that you collect, but you don't need a whole lot of special, very expensive equipment. No baler, any of those kinds of things. So that's very attractive. I used to think, back 10 years ago.
When you started, you've been doing this for over a decade.
This is easy. It's just a crocus after all. And I have now, as we become more skilled, sort of the more you know you don't know. And but that being said, the thing that makes it easier for these diversified farmers, they need to know how to grow a tomato, how to graft a tomato, how to control weeds. There's just and they have multiple different crops they need to get to know. Right. This is just one crop, one high value crop that, so I think it's easier than launching into a full diversified farm.
Right, and your idea of this from the start, that 10 years ago, sort of the principle you worked on was small diversified farmers, which is mostly the farmers in Vermont, and this was a shoulder season crop, something to get you from winter to spring and from fall to winter, sort of that thing, and using high tunnels or hoop houses, if you will, greenhouses, folks might know it.
Yes, but also it will survive in Vermont, even in the Northeast Kingdom. just growing it in the ground, which when we started, we didn't know that.
Right.
We assumed that it would not survive.
Right.
The literature that's out there indicated initially that it did not survive into what we would call zone 4.
Right.
But in fact, we determined that it does. So Vermont's growing season is so short that we're now thinking that there may be some advantages to trying to extend it with low tunnels, but not for survival, but to increase yield.
Increase yield. We've only got a few minutes left. This is a corm. You said a minute ago it's just a crocus. So it's not just a crocus. It's a certain kind of crocus. What are we looking at here, Margaret?
So this is a spring crocus that we're all seeing now, and it's very common for people to say, oh, I could harvest saffron from those spring crocuses.
Right.
No, you cannot. This is a different species entirely, and if you pull the poor flower apart, you can see there's no stigma. So there's no saffron in here. There's no system that will allow you to produce saffron.
That red thread.
Yeah, no red thread in the spring.
In that spring crocus.
Yep. But so saffron, the saffron crocus is a fall blooming crocus, and there are other fall blooming crocuses that look very similar, but some of those are toxic. So when people are thinking of getting into saffron in a small way, they need to make sure that they get Crocus sativus, not these other crocus.
Not these other ones.
Yep.
We have about a minute left. This is the corm. This is what it grows from. So it's a bulb, right?
Well, it's actually a corm.
A corm,
but
not a bulb.
to worry.
Okay,
Yes,
thank
a bulb remains. You have a tulip bulb, and it blooms, and then it makes new baby bulbs, but that original bulb is there.
Okay.
This original corm will all die away, and it makes all these secondary corms that you can see right here that will become the next season's flowers. And then the mother corm, the original mother corm, is in the bottom, and she will die.
Gotcha.
But the important thing to know, this was growing outside, and you can see the leaves are still green because it grows all winter long.
Great. Don't want to forget you have this workshop coming up in May. Yes,
May 8th.
May 8th. Thank you very much. All the information that folks need is on the website, is at your website on our screen. And we hope people will come to this workshop on May 8th, whether you have a lot of experience growing saffron or no experience growing saffron. Just 30 seconds left. This is the saffron that's in here. You've grown this. That is our ounce of saffron?
Yep. No, this is a gram of saffron.
A gram. I'm sorry, a gram.
This is selling for $50 to $75 a gram.
Okay, there you go. That tiny little amount that you can get through there is growing. That's what it takes. That closes out another Across the Fence. My thanks to the crew behind the scenes here at WCX, who always keep it spicy. I'm Keith Silva. This is Across the Fence.